Morning. We've got big news again. This time Xpeng once again helps NIO shareholders because it's pumping the entire China EV space. What has happened? Well, we've got some news that Xpeng, which is hanging up in the air just like this Formula One car here behind me, is actually looking to get out of its misery by changing its business model. At least that's what I think is happening currently with the news today that Xpeng and Didi, the ride-hailing platform in China, that are partnering up. Now this is done in a deal in which Xpeng is issuing shares, so they are diluting shareholders, and with that, with the money, with the proceeds, they are buying a stake in or buying some assets from Didi, the R&D development. And the goal here is to work together on a new car model that will possibly be used in Didi fleets, so for those ride-hailing cab drivers. And it will be manufactured by Xpeng, and it will be designed, possibly engineered by Xpeng. So this is interesting in many levels. First of all, for Xpeng, similar to the deal with Volkswagen here, this is meaning that they are getting some very, very tangible income here. You know, this helps to boost some sales, some of the proceeds, the manufactured cars, possibly going into Didi fleets, and therefore securing some sales there. And recently, Xpeng, of course, has been not doing as well as Li Auto or NIO. They would need to manufacture many, many more cars, of course, than NIO in order to break even. And Xpeng even had some negative margins, but most likely they will also hopefully recover at some point with more volume again. And if some of the supply issues are, through the books. However, I think that's just my opinion here. It seems like Xpeng realized that they are not able to break even with the current business model simply of manufacturing cars. That's why they took on Volkswagen as a partner and creating designs, engineering, and possibly manufacturing cars and a platform for Volkswagen there. And now the same for Didi. So essentially, Xpeng is not longer just a brand that is doing their own cars and then selling them. They are becoming much more like an agency type of a business in which they are taking on projects, and on behalf of others they are engineering cars, and then they're also producing them. So this helps them to get to larger volume. That is the positive, and it's also creating direct income from those R&D projects. On the other hand, it's possibly not that scalable, and we have to see whether or not this can be a success case. For example, Didi in the past also had a similar model with BYD, actually, where they had the D1, a car that was produced by BYD, but the R&D and engineering was actually done by Didi. And the problem here is that for BYD, this is not a very profitable, lucrative business because they have to separate or to reserve a manufacturing line to produce the car, but they cannot sell it to many other customers, and therefore the efficiencies are not great. There's not a big scale, and therefore it's also making the case not very nice for Didi itself. So that for the car owners, for the Didi owners, the Didi drivers, for them it's actually not a greatly efficient model there. And so this kind of seems a little bit unsustainable. And for Didi, the whole thing now with Xpeng has also become a little bit of a pivot in which they're more following the Huawei model, in which they don't want to do their own car, their own produced an R&D car. They're now outsourcing that to Xpeng instead. And this also could be a drawback against a competitor, which is Baidu Apollo, or no, not Baidu Apollo, but Baidu itself, now with Jidu launching their own R&D and manufactured vehicles, which will be, Baidu is owning the full stack of the autonomous driving IP and all of the know-how around this, plus the car itself. And Didi, not so much. They're just a complete way around now, partnering up here with Xpeng. So you see, it's interesting that this company chose to not get into this whole very competitive business of creating an own EV, for example, like Xiaomi is now doing, just because they think the prospects of them succeeding at this are not good enough. And at the same time, the EVs, which are consolidating right now, are looking, now in the case of Xpeng, to pivot their business model in order to find ways to break even and succeed in the long run, right? And so, yeah, Xpeng is doing their work in this regard, and today that's the good news for the whole sector. Interestingly, let's say from a NIO perspective, this would mean that Xpeng is maybe becoming the Uber driver car, right? The Didi car. It's not so much its own brand anymore. In the future, we might see those Didi cars on the road, which are produced by Xpeng, and so this has also something to do with the brand there. And then also, on the other hand, they do this platform for Volkswagen. So not much of a own brand identity anymore. The head of autonomous driving from Xpeng also left. So now buying the assets of this R&D and autonomous department of Didi may also help a little bit to manifest themselves still in this area and get back some insights and some capabilities in this area, and still be at the forefront of autonomous ride-hailing and taxis, which was always been the use case. So it makes sense from a strategic perspective of Xpeng. And now from NIO, I think it means there is one less kind of, in a way, there's one less competitor, if you will. It seems now this paves the way free for the sub-brands of NIO, which are more in competition to Xpeng. And NIO is trying this other way of becoming a huge manufacturer with all of the NIO brand, the sub-brands and so on, and owned brands and owned R&D, and owned manufacturing in a way, in the partnership with JAC, of course. So a different way. Of course, they could also stick to the resources, the key resources of, or the key activities of researching and development, and as well as vehicle design. That's one of the strengths of NIO, right? And in a way, Xpeng is now also specializing in this. I think these are also some theoretical capabilities of NIO there. But for me, what are the prospects for NIO here? I think rather in the area of partnering in another way with some of the German OEMs, for example, out there, who may want to use one of the NIO platforms. I think that's rather the way to go. These would be different income streams, not project-based, more scalable, and yeah, based on still having the ownership of the NIO brand and the sub-brands in the future. So we can see that now the business models are more and more differentiating there, and in a way, a healthy development could be good for Xpeng if it works out with Didi. I said like what could be the hurdles here, and in the end, good news for the whole industry today, including NIO. Thanks for watching, and see you in my next video.